RT's film crew has borne witness to the aftermath of Wednesday's shelling of a government-controlled western part of the city where militant fire killed at least 5 children. RT's Murad Gazdiev went to the point of the mortar impact and also visited the hospital where the victims were rushed to. A warning, you may find these images disturbing.
The rebel barrage began at almost exactly 8 o'clock in the morning, and it happened at the worst possible time, just as thousands of children were going to school. The first shell actually came in between these buildings. What are the chances that it would miss those roofs? It impacted this curb right here, instantly killing 2 girls. 5 other people were injured. 2 of them later died in hospital. But that's Aleppo life for you. Whether you're going to school, shopping, to visit family, or just taking a walk, there's always that chance that a bomb or a shell might land at your feet. It's just the way things are, and there's nothing you can do about it.
The children were on their way to school when a mortar shell landed nearby. A few of them were killed. I knew them. They went to my school.
Emotions flowed freely at the hospital. Anxious relatives and parents cried and shouted and cursed the rebels and their backers.
They were just school children, my pupils. There was a sandwich and a bottle of water in her backpack, and also 100 liras that her father had given her. Those were our pupils. I'm really at a loss for words. Those who did this are just barbaric. We need to put an end to these atrocities.
A shell landed near me. The blast tore apart my cousin before my very eyes. Oh God, that was my cousin.
In all, 5 children were killed today, as many as 4 dozen people injured.
It's very likely that the death toll will rise. Some areas are completely inaccessible to ambulances because of heavy mortar shelling.
Murad Gazdiev, RT in Aleppo.
It is not the first attack which has hit children in western Aleppo. We've asked numerous international human rights organizations to comment on the current situation there, and this is what UNICEF told us.
What concerns us is that all parties to the conflict are committing violations against children, grave violations that include killing, maiming, attacks on schools, attacks on hospitals, lack of humanitarian access, and that should stop. Violations against children in Syria should come to an end.
We've received only one other response. Human Rights Watch told us it didn't have enough information, especially about the ongoing situation in western Aleppo. Now, the government held parts of the city remaining densely populated with a worsening humanitarian situation. In fact, let's show you how the districts of Aleppo are separated between the warring sides here. Nearly, I should say, 300,000 people living in the eastern sides of Aleppo over here, though on the western side here, about 1.5 million people based on this side of the city. And RT's Gayane Chichakyan approached the US State Department to ask them about the latest extremist attacks on the western side, government-controlled side of Aleppo.
In response to my question about the shelling in government-controlled western Aleppo, which killed 5 children on Thursday, the State Department spokesman Mark Toner said he wasn't aware of that incident. I brought up the report of my colleague Murad Gazdiev on what he saw and filmed at the hospital where these children were taken. This is a screenshot from my colleague's report. These are 2 girls, Maria and Lama, who were killed in the shelling of that bus stop. And I want to ask, civilian suffering in eastern Aleppo has been the focus of everybody's attention, rightly so. Does the U.S. government pay attention to civilian, to what's happening to civilians in western Aleppo? Anything you can say specifically in that regard?
We consider any civilian loss of life as a result of the conflict in Syria to be one too many. It's the reason why we were trying so hard to get a cessation of hostilities in place so that we could get back to a political negotiation. What you have now in Aleppo is full-on conflict, and in that kind of climate and environment, you're going to have civilians pay the price.
Do you think the shelling of this school bus stop, the killing of these kids, was something that was to be expected in light of what's going on?
Again, I think I said before, any intentional targeting of civilians we would strongly condemn. I just don't have the details in this particular case.
Throughout the war, the U.S. has backed the rebels who, in eastern Aleppo, happen to be intertwined with Al-Nusra terrorists. Civilians there are now caught in the middle of a military campaign to root Al-Nusra out, with much of the Western media attention in their coverage of Syria now focused on eastern Aleppo. There's the danger that the suffering and terror of civilians who are in the government-controlled Aleppo may be overlooked, as they're being fired at by rebels and terrorists from the east of the city.